So thank you, first of all, to Mind Oasis for having me. I love what Mind Oasis does and what they offer to all of us as part of the community. I'm really grateful to be here, and thank you for joining us. I know that with the shift of schedule, things get a little crazy, which is just right. It's just all exactly how it's supposed to be, and it is all fuel for our practice. And so I thought just to kind of get here and get settled, we'll take just a little minute of transition and come into current time. And that can look like whatever feels good to you. If you like your eyes closed, you can just close your eyes briefly or just look down at the desktop. And come into current time with yourself. And whatever that experience is just right. And as you come into this moment of now, this moment of current time, please offer yourself a friendly hello. And then feel into the physical body, where the breath moves the body. And allow the breath to deepen naturally and easily. And as you are in current time, please remind yourself that there's nowhere else to go and there's nothing else to do. And let your awareness be widened during our time together so that the deeper, subtle layers of your being can remind you of the things that you know, remind you of the goodness of who you are, and remind you that you can't do it wrong. And then come back to the breath and feel your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair. And then as you're ready, opening your eyes, coming back to our shared space. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you being willing to play along. Usually when I bring a group into current time, it's for the whole group, but it's more for me because there's always those nerves of getting started and remembering everything I want to say. So thank you so much for your willingness to just be still and to let the container kind of emerge so that our shared experience together is one that will enrich all of us. And especially personally, when we can go in and create that space of stillness in current time, there's this, I don't know, I like the word magic. So there's this little magic thing that happens that our deep knowing can surface. And the words that are spoken and shared, those words may carry meaning, big meaning, small meaning, but they mostly elicit deep knowing from you. And so it's in that space of coming into your own current time within the layers of your being that the knowledge that you seek will arise. And so what I hope to share with you today, this idea that our emotions are not private, is a little bit of the science behind the emotional resilience. I've studied with I studied the work of Dr. Paul Ekman, but I studied in person with his daughter, Dr. Eve Ekman, emotional balance. And so his work is work around the universal nature of emotions and the fact that we all have them. And do we all have the same emotions? Is it based on culture? Is it based on growing up situations? Is it based on family? What is relationship? What is the relationship impact on emotion? And through his studies, we come to find out that we all have, regardless of where we live, where we grew up, what color we are, what language we speak, we all have 5 universal emotions, and he calls those the big 5. And I really like to use the movie Inside Out. Most of us have seen that movie. And Dr. Paul Ekman was the scientist behind the scenes of the movie who gave his research and data into the creation of those emotional characters. And so we have anger and fear, sadness, disgust, and joy. And those are the big 5 that universally every person will experience. And what I really find fascinating, but more than fascinating, is useful, is that these emotions all serve a survival purpose. And when we can begin to kind of look behind the immediacy of our emotions, and especially our emotional responses, and kind of look at, well, why? I mean, why do we have this anger? I mean, it seems so destructive and we try so hard to get a hold of it, and right? Or why am I continually sad? I mean, the sun is shining and life seems to be good for many people, but I don't know why I'm sad. Why do I have this? Why can't life just be kind of steady and even? And some people actually long for a flat line of stable emotion. But when we can look behind this face of emotion, we come to understand that there is a survival purpose, a survival mechanism in each of these emotions. And when we can look at it through that lens, it can take some of that pressure off of ourselves. I really love this phrase, I'm angry that I'm angry. You know, you're trying so hard to move past your anger, whichever emotion that gets you, and you feel bad that you feel bad, or you know, you have an emotion around your emotional expression, so it can get kind of convoluted. And so I like to take the heat off of feeling bad because we have emotional responses, right? And so a lot of this stuff that I've studied, I keep studying it because it matters to me and it makes a difference. And so most of the stuff that I share is the information that I find to be most impactful in my own life. And then of course that happens to be what we observe out there, right, in other arenas of life. And so looking at these survival purposes, we can understand that anger is to remove an obstacle on our path to a goal. And so it can shed a little light on you, right? Oh, I have a goal. I'm actually interested in making things better or different, and I really want to achieve that goal, and you're in my way. And so that anger flares up so that, okay, and kind of process through with me in your own experience. When you're angry, you get big and powerful because you need to be able to move that obstacle. Now, each of these emotions also comes with a facial expression, and it's called in the literature the facial signature of anger, and then the body posture. And we don't even, it's really funny because I don't have to tell you, okay, think about what you have to do in your face to make yourself look angry. Like, where do your eyebrows have to go? What happens to your eyes? What happens to your mouth? We just know the facial expression, right? And so when we see somebody angry out there, especially if they're angry at us, it's very intimidating. They look big and scary. And so their mask of anger gives me a little bit of fear. So I'm going to back up away from them because I realize that they're very scary. They're coming after me because their actions demonstrate that. And my fear, so the anger and fear work really nicely together to kind of demonstrate how our emotions play off of each other. And so if the person is angry and they're angry at me, I see that big angry face and they get really big and powerful and hands come into fists. And most of the time, an angry person will move in toward the object that is in their way on their path to their goal. And so that creates fear in the obstacle. Okay, so if a person is angry at me, I see their face, I have my angry or my fearful expression, and I back up, I put my hands up to kind of protect myself. And so that natural dynamic of anger and fear gives both parties a better chance of survival. Because if we have to go head to head and fight, you know, and again, these are survival mechanisms from way back. Often it was fight to the death, right? To protect the tribe, to protect my own life. And so we both have a better chance of surviving if I recognize the angry person and I get afraid and move out of the way. And then my fear face registers in the angry person. Oh, I'm having effect. They're backing away. I don't have to go in and attack them physically. And so anger survival is remove that obstacle on my path toward my goal. It's also a very powerful sense to right an injustice. And if the injustice has been buried or poo-pooed or kind of cast as something ridiculous, that anger can often become elevated because somebody out there is not able to thrive. Whoever that, I guess we could say victim of the injustice might be. So that's the anger. And then the fear, that facial expression of fear, everything has to get really wide and really big so that we can take in as much input through sight, sound, smell, and taste even. Is that a threat to my well-being? So when my fear kicks in, I'm assessing like micro expressions per second. I am assessing if I am in trouble. And in the whole ball of fear, we are assessing for safety, and we have two ways that we have to feel safe. And the first way is physically, and the second way is psychologically. And so as we are searching for that safety, I am backing away from the object so I have a wider vision, so I can take in as much information as I possibly can to protect myself, to protect my life, and to protect the life of others in the tribe. And I use this word tribe on purpose, again, because these are survival instincts from way back in the day when existence was tribally, and if you were outcast from the tribe, no man could survive as an individual away from the tribe, so you would perish. And so the maintenance of the health and safety of the tribe was critical. And that has not left us. That is one of those, I don't know, use the word evolutionary if you like, but that is one of those things that has stuck with us to protect life. It's a natural innate instinct that we all come with. And it can be trained out of a person. And we'll just leave that right there. But we do come with this instinct to protect life, especially children, because they're the future. And so when there is threat to children, then it's, we're pulling out the big, the big club, right, to protect the kids. And so moving from that state of fear into disgust. Disgust is another universal emotion, and disgust is to remove something poisonous from me or the tribe. And so we all have that disgust face, and the nose wrinkles up right here, so the nostrils get really big. So like if someone puts a gross bowl of worms and gross, disgusting things in front of you, your face does this thing so that your nostrils can get really big so you can sense if that's poisonous and going to kill you or not. So we have that very strong physical disgust. All of these emotions, being universal, they can be expressed in different ways culturally. The way you were raised, what's appropriate in the culture, what's appropriate in the family, what's appropriate in school or not. And so the expression of these can vary from culture to culture. So I'm kind of just going on where we live and how we've grown up and the things that are familiar to us. And so with that disgust, I don't remember, gross. That was the word that was banned at our house. There would be dinner on the table and we'd be like, oh, that looks kind of gross. And so nobody could say gross because it was impolite to say gross. But something just smelled yucky, or, there was that thing and your throat kind of closes. And so we know what that looks like. And then there's a very interesting component to disgust. It's called social disgust. And it's this awareness. Again, it's so often these things are just under the conscious awareness, and my meditation teacher calls this place the pre-conscious awareness. So we'll get a little hit that, oh, that person might not be so good for the tribe, right? We get a hit that person could be dangerous, could be a liar. And when we think about it, the examples in the literature and the studies are pedophilia, people who do really horrible things to children, people who kill for pleasure. Those kind of people naturally elicit this social disgust. We don't want to be around them. We don't want to look at pictures of them. We hear their name on the news. And even, my face now, this is a face of disgust. These nostrils coming a little wider. Your mouth just kind of closes itself okay. And so we get that social, that hit of a person that we want to be careful of, or we're not quite sure. And it's really interesting. I haven't read studies, but I've talked to a lot of people about this emotional stuff, that with especially this social disgust, of really paying attention when you get that hit, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not so sure about this person. And what is often, again, this is not the research, this is just my own personal gas pump survey, is that there's a sense that they are being lied to or manipulated, which is very interesting, because if we look at perpetrators and victims, that's almost always the case. And so it's just a fascinating thing to kind of put in your awareness of when you might get that little hit. And then, just really pay attention. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? And in just a minute, we'll talk about the messages from these emotions too. So we might come back to that one. And then our fourth big emotion is sadness. And we all recognize very, very easily the facial expression and the body posture of sadness. And we slump in. The chest gets concave and the upper back rounds to protect the heart. The chin is down. It's really hard for a person who is sad to look at anyone else with direct eye contact. It can be almost painful. We know that the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? So if we're sad, we feel very, very protective of our heart, and that's kind of that slumped body posture of sadness. And it can be very invasive. If you're sad and someone says, hey, look at me in the eyes when I'm talking to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, right? And so as we see and recognize these postures and signatures, facial signatures of emotions, we have a little bit more awareness of what might be going on in a person, and it's just an awareness. We have no idea actually, but our emotions aren't private, right? And so when we can see this on another person, then we can say, oh, maybe they need a little bit more space, or, oh, maybe I speak more sweetly, or, maybe I don't speak for just a few minutes while their emotion is processing. And so the emotional cues, these are what actually guide communication before spoken language happens. We have a couple of different languages based on the development of the brain from a baby and so forth. And I think it's our first emotion is facial expressions, our first communication. A baby comes out into the world in their little instinctual brain that's functioning. One of their first things is to look for two black dots about 8 inches away from the face. And those black dots are the eyes of the mama. And that's how the baby first begins to communicate and to bond with the mother, is just looking for those dark spots. And that, again, is pure instinct. And that is a facial recognition thing. And a baby needs to see a mother smile. And children need to see the full face of their caregivers, of their playmates, of their siblings. They need to see that full face in order to develop emotional awareness. Again, it's the first language. Our second language is play. And then the third language that we develop is spoken language. Written language comes way later. And so if we lack, it's really super fascinating. Some of the studies that have been done with the cell phone, on videos and watching people and communicating through text and without pictures, is it hinders emotional development, especially if it's texting or email, when we can't see or hear tone or can't see face. Then we miss the whole emotional component behind the messages. And I've also seen it in the literature that 90% of what we communicate is our body, our face, our tone, and 10% is our actual words. And so our facial signatures of these emotions are critical to creating not only communication, but harmonious communication. And again, the neat thing is we all come loaded with the program to understand these expressions, these facial signatures, the bodily postures, and it's our innate gift. And so when we begin to pay attention to more than just what somebody says, or thinking about our response to what they're saying and what we have to make sure to get into the discussion or the argument, and when we can just kind of soften back just a little bit, we can see the emotion behind the words. We begin to see the hurt. We begin to see the sadness. We begin to see the frustration. We begin to see, oh, she's not actually sad. That's angry. And so we have such an enhanced experience of communicating with others when we are more aware of what those emotions are that are, sometimes they're super fleeting, right? You just catch it and you're like, oh. And we know this. We've all walked into a room and there's two people over there, and immediately we don't even have to hear anything, right? We just think, oh, I'm gonna just come back later. And how do we know that, right? Because we pick up, it's called mirror neurons. We pick up on each other. We read the resonances in each other's energy fields. And so the last big emotion that we all share universally is joy. And the survival purpose of joy is for progress. When we're enjoying life, we're super creative. We move life forward. We move society forward. We move humanity forward. Procreation, so that humanity continues. Oh, and I forgot, the survival purpose of sadness is to draw each other together for support, to support each other through loss, through grief, through betrayal, through suffering of any sort. And so sadness is kind of a universal cry of help me, help me, I can't do this alone. Again, societally, there's a lot of stuff around the expression of emotion, the shame and blame of having certain emotions. Big boys don't cry, nice girls don't yell, those kind of things that we've grown up with. And so just as that awareness deepens in you as you're moving through your next days and weeks, just kind of hold that whole big bag of emotion with kid gloves, because there can be a lot going on behind the scenes, but we can get little clues based on watching each other and really listening with the heart, listening on the inside, because we recognize the emotions that show up. And so why does all this matter? I think I have 1 minute to wrap this all up for you. It matters because our emotions have messages for us. It is through our emotional body that we can bring integral healing into our own system. And so when we started, we came into present time, we came into current time in our physical self. We can also move through current time in our emotional layer of self and begin to understand, I have these emotions. Why? Oh, I'm angry because I have a goal, and my goal is this, and I feel like I can't meet that goal. Or, so the emotions, and it's the work for every person to do on their own. And there's a lot of guidance out there, and the art of emotional resilience gives a lot of tools and practices to move through that. And then I'll be doing the course starting next Wednesday. So I'm super excited about that. But these messages that our emotions, especially the ones that keep coming and coming, they are there for us to heal, to become whole and integral in all layers of our being. And so that's why it matters. And that's why emotional resilience is such a critical topic, because it is a pathway to wholeness, and joy is a result of that wholeness. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And I will see, hopefully, many of you, Michelle and Melissa, hopefully next week on Wednesday. Okay. Anything else, Kaylee?
No, thank you so much, Molly. That was really wonderful and really informative.
Thanks. My pleasure. Hope to see you again very soon.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.